War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. Over 4 decades, Angela Davis has been one of the most influential activists and intellectuals in the United States. An icon of the 1970s Black liberation movement, her work around issues of gender, race, class, and prisons has influenced critical thought and social movements across several generations. She's a leading advocate for prison abolition, a position informed by her own experience as a fugitive on the FBI's top 10 most wanted list 40 years ago. Angela Davis rose to national attention in 1969 when she was fired as a professor from UCLA. It was Ronald Reagan who had her fired as a result of her membership in the Communist Party and her leading a campaign to defend 3 black prisoners at Soledad Prison. This is a clip from an NBC newscast in 1969 after the UCLA Board of Regents voted to fire her. It begins with then California Governor Ronald Reagan explaining why he pushed for her ouster.
Academic freedom does not include attacks on other faculty members or on the administration of the university or speaking to incite trouble on other campuses. Now, I think once again, in this particular case, we're talking simply about an issue of whether to hire or not. And this comes up a great many times, and there are many people who are decided not to hire, and it does not become a great case in which publicly there has to be a debate as to why we chose someone else instead of this other individual.
While the regents were voting, Miss Davis was a few blocks away in a rally protesting the treatment of black prisoners in Soledad State Prison. She sees her dismissal as a case of political repression, which she may or may not challenge.
I'm going to keep on struggling to see the Soledad brothers in all political prisoners, because I think that what has happened to me is only a very tiny, minute example of what is happening to them. I suppose I just lost that job at UCLA as a result of my political opinions and activities.
In 1970, Angela Davis was charged with murder after guns used in a botched kidnapping attempt to free the prisoners were alleged to be hers. Davis briefly escaped capture before her arrest here in New York City 40 years ago this month. In an interview from prison then, she talked about the role of prisons in the black liberation struggle.
There came a point where the revolutionary forces at work in the black community began to express themselves in jails and prisons. However, unlike, say, the campuses, unlike any other area in the society, even the armed forces, the room for any kind of meaningful political activity is so narrow that obviously as soon as the prison officials became aware of what was happening, they would confront these new developments with the most devastating kind of repression imaginable. And this is why, when I was involved in all of the problems at UCLA surrounding my membership in the Communist Party, and when I was fighting for my job, I had just become aware of what was happening in the prisons, and I always insisted that people who were supporting me in my fight to retain my job, regardless of what my political beliefs and political activities were, had to look at the prison.
Angela Davis speaking from prison 40 years ago. In 1972, she was acquitted of all charges in a trial that drew international attention. Instead of shying away from public life, Davis resumed her academic work and social activism. Today, she's Professor Emerita of History of Consciousness and Feminist Studies at University of California, Santa Cruz, and a visiting distinguished professor at Syracuse University. She's founder of the group Critical Resistance, a grassroots effort to end the prison industrial complex. Her books include Women, Race, and Class, Abolition Democracy, Blues Legacies and Black Feminism, Are Prisons Obsolete? This year, she came out with a new critical edition of Frederick Douglass's classic work, Narrative of the Life of Frederick Douglass, an American Slave, written by himself. She will be appearing with the author Toni Morrison at the New York Public Library on October 27th for an event called Frederick Douglass, Literacy, Libraries, and Liberation. Professor Angela Davis joins me now for an extended conversation from Ithaca, New York. Welcome to Democracy Now!, Angela Davis.
Thank you very much, Amy.
Well, we have just taken not only listeners and viewers, but you as well on a journey through your life. It was quite remarkable to see then-Governor Ronald Reagan speaking about you. Why was he so intent on preventing you from taking on your assistant professorship at UCLA?
Well, I've always thought that it was not so much about me as an individual as it was about discovering a scapegoat who could be targeted in order to frighten people away from the radical movement at that time, and especially the Black liberation movement. You know, one of the points that I became aware of after I was arrested was that literally hundreds, perhaps thousands of Black women were stopped and arrested. And of course, not all of them could have looked like me. So yeah, I think this was a part of a strategy of terror designed to prevent people from getting involved in movements at that time.
Now, of course, it only mobilized people. He put pressure on the California regents. They fired you before you could even teach your first class, except you did. What did you have? Something like 150 people enrolled in the class, but 1,500 people came out as you decided to teach it anyway, even though you were fired?
Yeah. Yeah, that was really a marvelous display of solidarity. I myself was really shocked to see so many people. And it was interesting because that first class was in a course that I had designed a course by the title of Recurring Philosophical Themes in Black Literature. I was teaching in the philosophy department, but we did not have at that time a field called Black philosophy or African philosophy or African American philosophy. So I was improvising, attempting to address some issues that would also be relevant for the contemporary period.
We're going to go to a break, and we're going to come back. And we want to talk about your life, and we also want to talk about this very interesting new critical edition of the Narrative of the Life of Frederick Douglass, written by himself, with essays that written by you, Angela, as well as your lectures on liberation. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, the War and Peace Report. We'll be back in a minute.
Angela, they put you in prison. Angela, they shut down your mouth.